Hey everyone, this is Jennifer Harris with Whole Story Counseling, and I'm here to wrap up our Cutting the Cord video series that I've been doing over these past few weeks. It's been quite a journey and a very personal one also, so lots of emotions, lots of stories coming up. And as I've been thinking about how to conclude, the question I get asked a lot is, okay, that's all great, but what now? What next? What do I do? And we start to spin in this, how do I make this work? And there's a challenge when we start to look at how before we're clear on what. So I thought I would conclude by being frustratingly non-specific about the next 3 steps to do, because that's going to be different for everybody. What I can offer you are some categories, some good questions to ask, and some targets about what might produce evidence of being on the right track. Everybody's story is a little unique. Everybody's story is uniquely different when it comes to being the adult child of a parent and to be the parent of adult children. So as we conclude, just a quick flyby of what we've talked about has been the overarching desire for us to learn how to do relationship as adult child with parent based on love, based on mutuality, respect, autonomy, the ability to each be their own person, to release the hierarchy of parent to child and to bring that relationship more into equal balance so that each point of view is as equally valued and valid, even when we might not understand it. Releasing that often structured family dynamic that is built on obligation and its twin arms of demand and expectations. I'm just noticing I'm stumbling over my words a little bit, which, if you know me well, that's unusual. And that just might reflect the emotion and the challenge of engaging these stories, particularly when there's been more harm. To give yourself the permission to even look at what else might be possible can feel dangerous. It can feel unsafe. It can feel as if you don't have the permission to do that, that you are stuck. I'm here to say that fear is a place to start. So first of all, follow the fear, follow the discomfort, follow what feels not okay, not allowed, not permitted. Follow that path. What's down the road? What's under the fear? What's under the discomfort? Everyone has choices to make about what they allow, what they choose, what they desire in their life. And many times that fear, that discomfort, that lack of permission might keep us stuck in ways of doing relationships with our parents that we no longer desire, but don't think we have a choice. I'm here to say you do. And on the other side of that fear is to be outside of your comfort zone, to be outside of what keeps us bound in old stories, that keeps us attached to old ways of thinking and feeling and doing, where we don't have as much choice as we would have on the other side of that boundary of our comfort zone. Follow the fear, follow the discomfort. It's worth it. It's fruitful. And you're going to have some feelings about it, and that's okay too. When you find yourself on the other side of that boundary of your comfort zone, that straight jacket of what's in and what's out, what's allowed and what's not, then we start to be able to see a little bit more clearly that we are likely defining what we want by what we don't want versus what we do want. The difference between defending ourselves against something versus choosing for something. And sometimes the process can only begin by saying, not that, not that, ooh, not that. And that's fine, that's good. But the process needs to move past what I'm against, into what I'm for. That way of defining yourself and how you want your relationships to be in the positive, a yes to this, is a really important step towards releasing those feelings of fear and discomfort and non-allowance that keep us locked in our comfort zone. If we don't know what we're for and all we know is what we're against, we don't have a good, clear picture of who we are and what we want our relationships to look like. It's a place to start to know what you don't want. And maturity, growth, healing, choice all come from a more balanced perspective, a fuller picture, if you will, the bigger picture. We don't want to just have the cons list. We want to have the pros list too. As we start to ask some of those questions, that might be a really new thing. That might be a brand new thing for some of us to be able to ask ourselves what we want. That was something that I was never taught how to do. What do I want? We're probably pretty good at telling ourselves what other people want, and we're probably a little bit better than saying what I don't want versus what I do want. But in order to have the tools to dare to break out of that comfort zone and imagine a vision for the future that is more free, then we require practices in our life that ground us. That just like a tree spreads its roots, so we are grounded in who we be as a whole person, so that our brain isn't freaking out over here, or our emotions aren't completely freaking out over here, or our body is in pain. All of those responses are valid and even normal to looking at change in our life. If we're not freaking out a little bit, we're really not contemplating change. But we also then need the things, just like a tree, that feed the roots growing strong, that water the earth that we're in, that fertilize it, that set us in a place that's even planted that suits who we are. There are certain kinds of trees you don't plant near a house because the roots do things that are not fun to houses. There are certain trees that are safe to do that. There are certain trees that require sun or shade. There are certain trees that require actual other trees around them to grow more robustly to produce fruit. What kind of tree are you? What practices plant you and ground you and fertilize you? I might encourage a couple being prayer, whatever that looks like for you. Do you know that prayer is not just owned by religion? That every human being has a dialogue, an inner dialogue happening that I believe connects to God, to that divine presence, that otherness outside of us, what science might call the energy between molecules and the energy that connect us to each other and to the planet. That connection that religion calls God, science calls energy. We are always in dialogue with it. Use that connection intentionally, where there is a moment of the day where you stop being the human doing and remember that you are a human being of mind, body, soul, emotions, spirit, gut, all together. You might call this meditation. You might call this sitting still for a minute. You might call this rest. You might call this waiting. You might call it, I hate this. If you're not used to it, it sucks for a minute, not going to lie. But the radical, subversive, revolutionary practice to stop for 60 seconds, for 3 minutes, for 5 minutes, for whatever you got. And to remember that you are in a body, on a planet, breathing air, so that your brain doesn't always drive your bus, so that your emotions aren't always driving your bus, that you recenter, recalibrate, come back to yourself as the parts of you are just pulled apart by what culture and society and the pace of life do. Find a practice of prayer / meditation / stopping / rest / Sabbath to ground you into something bigger, something beyond yourself. Lastly, community is important. And if this process of redefining relationships disrupts those with your family, in particular your parents as an adult child, as it can do, do you have other people that you can create community with, that you can plant your tree near, that can become your chosen family, as opposed to the ones that are biologically, legally, the people you were assigned to? There is a very potent and life-giving goodness, energy, spirit to the people that we choose to make family with. The people that support us in our pursuit of following the fear, to supporting us as we start to ask really hard questions about those feelings that keep us stuck, those feelings that we think keep us locked where we are, and to help us see beyond that to what's outside of that comfort zone, that can help us as we start to engage and ask questions and wrestle with, what am I for? What do I choose for, rather than defend against, rather than be not this, to help us be grounded by providing fertilizer, by providing pruning sometimes, by providing that space where it's okay to not be all together, to not have it all wrapped up in a nice little bow, while at the same time encouraging, honoring, naming, and reflecting back the growth that is happening. If on the path of defining parental relationships as an adult child leads us to a season where that relationship is vacated for a season or for a long time. We do not do well by remaining on our own. It's a risk, not going to lie. Pursuing community, pursuing a chosen family is risky. And yet it is as vital to the process of becoming that really well planted tree as the air we breathe. The choice is to look at relationships, to look at how we show up, to look at the old stories of how we were trained and programmed as children to think, to feel, to believe, to allow, to not allow. These choices are not without risk. Change is always risky. And in many ways, we have come to believe that if there's risk, that means it's bad. If I feel fear, if I feel discomfort, bad. If it's not easy, bad. And bad means wrong. So if I feel these feelings and it's not easy and it requires change, wrong, bad, wrong. If we look at the people that inspire us, if we look at the heroes of who we want to be more like, there is not one of them that did not take risk. There is not one of those people who have changed the course of their life and the ripple effect that it has on those around them and on the world who did not risk. So the question is, what do you want to risk? And let me be clear, staying exactly where you are is a risk too. Not choosing to open your eyes and look around is a risk also. Because just like a tree, imagine that tree that doesn't get any sunlight, doesn't get any nutrients, doesn't get any water or nourishment. That tree changes too. It's just not in the direction that we think. We never stay the same. We're either dying or living. We're either growing or decaying. There's no standing still. There's a risk either way. There's risk either way. What do you want to choose? And if there is a way that I can support you along the journey for a few steps, for a few miles, I'm here. Not everyone has community around them that is safe for this process, and that's okay. I can be part of your chosen community if you desire. I have had others who have helped me. We all need help along the way. Reach out. Ask for help. It might be the hardest word you ever utter, but it is the key to unlock one of those chains that keep us bound. So there you have it. A possible vision for what's next. Forgive me. I'm not sorry, but forgive me for not offering you a 3-step process and all of them starting with the letter P. But there are steps, there are markers, there are targets that we can move towards. that will boundary us on the road to goodness and connection. And if you require and desire a story Sherpa on the way, a companion, someone to smell the wind, read the sky, be with you, I'm here. Thank you for being willing to even engage these questions. They're hard, not going to lie, but it's good. And I look forward to hearing how you're doing on your journey of cutting the cord, of releasing those obligations, those demands, those expectations in your relationships, and creating relationships based on love that is defined by respect and mutuality. Until next time, bye bye.